Department of Justice, they are reviewing classified documents found at a D.C. facility left by Joe Biden when he was vice president. The Justice Department is currently reviewing 10 classified documents found in a locked storage closet at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement in an office formerly used by then Vice President Joe Biden. The documents found on November 2nd by Biden's attorneys include U.S. intelligence memos and briefings for Ukraine, Iran, and the United Kingdom, dated between 2013 and 2016. Now, none of the materials are currently being sought by the National Archives, and Biden's legal team is cooperating with the archives and the Department of Justice. Joining us right now to explain this is Gerren Gaynor. He's the White House correspondent and managing editor of politics for the Grio. Glad to have you here. So, all right. So Republicans are excited, hyped, saying, oh, my goodness, double standard. Look what happened here. Walk us through the difference. First of all, let's talk about first the difference with the documents that they actually discovered.
Yes, so as you mentioned in your opening, the documents that were discovered in President Biden's former offices are just 10 classified documents, memos, briefings related to, as you mentioned, Ukraine, Iran, and the UK. There's nothing so far that suggests that there is any grave threat to national security. As you know, any classified document can potentially be a threat to national security. I think it's also worth noting that there are 3 levels of classified information. There's top secret, there's secret, and then there is confidential. And so the National Archives does note that confidential classified documents can be something as simple as sensitive personal information. So there is a chance that of these 10 documents that were found in President Biden's offices, that they were perhaps personal information related to him and not necessarily something that is a grave threat to national security, which is a big difference between what we're seeing, what we saw in the former President Donald Trump and the hundreds of cases, so a huge volume of classified documents. And obviously there's a big difference in the scope of the investigations, at least presently.
And also the difference here is that Biden's attorneys immediately turned them over once it was discovered.
Exactly. So President Biden's personal attorney was clearing out the offices, and he discovered an envelope with these documents and found those 10 classified documents. He immediately, that very same day, contacted the National Archive and Record Administration. The White House counsel also got in contact with the office, as well as the DOJ. And so obviously, if anyone, I'm a White House correspondent, I follow the administration very closely. They're very careful to follow the law, especially coming out of the Trump years, where there was a lot of worry and worry about how the Trump administration was using the DOJ for political reasons. The difference on the other side, former President Trump, he tried to resist the obtaining of these documents. The National Archive repeatedly tried to get access to these documents. They returned some documents, and then they reached back out to the Trump administration and said, well, to Trump himself and his personal lawyer, saying, we think you are still in possession of documents. We need you to turn them over. Former President Trump believed that some of these documents were his personal possession, and because he was president, he had the right to keep them. That is not the case by law. And while he fought to the very end, ultimately that ended in an FBI raid, which we know became huge headlines for former President Trump. And so now Republicans are trying to compare the two, but the big difference is that the National Archives was not aware of these documents that were in possession of President Biden, but they were very aware of the documents that were in possession of Trump and were actively working to get them and were being resisted every step of the way.
And Donald Trump, there were 320 documents, and yes. He fought absolutely, and then basically said, oh, it's mine. I can declassify anything that I want. And so for people to somehow suggest that, well, this somehow exonerates Donald Trump, but the Trump probe is also a criminal probe, correct?
Correct. Currently, the DOJ, there's an active criminal investigation into former President Donald Trump because of the resistance in these documents. And also, we don't know the full scope of these documents that were in possession of Trump, but we do know that there was at least some documents related to nuclear weapons. And so when you're thinking about classified information and whether or not it's a harm to national security, it is whether or not those documents, if it was in the possession of a bad actor, could that be a threat to national security? And I don't think we would want a bad actor to have nuclear weapon information intelligence in their possession.
So what exactly is next?
So next, Attorney General Merrick Garland has to, he's playing a very careful line here. He is currently having to lead an investigation of a sitting president. And he also knows that he is that Biden is a Democrat, and he doesn't want to make it seem as if the person who appointed him into the role that he is giving him favors. So he has appointed a preliminary special counsel, John Lausch, who is a Trump appointee. And that is important to note because, again, he doesn't want to make it seem like he is being biased against Trump or biased in the sense of trying to help President Biden in this investigation. It is not a criminal investigation. It's simply a preliminary investigation to gather the facts and then present it to Attorney General Merrick Garland, who will then determine whether or not, with that information, he should open up a criminal investigation. And if there is enough in this investigation, if he finds that these 10 documents are somehow nefarious or a huge threat to national security, or perhaps if he finds out whether or not President Biden knew about these documents and tried to hide it, which it doesn't look like that is the case, then he would have to consider those things and determine whether or not he will actually elevate this to a criminal investigation.
All right, Gerren Gaynor, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.